Hey folks, it's Piano Man Steve. This is a follow-up to my most recent blog post that was called Dealing with the Incoming Fire. There's some things I want to clear up. I got some comments and some private messages, and I think a lot of you got what I was trying to say, but something about my tone of voice and some of the things that I went into detail about it kind of ended up distracting from my real message. And this is a very important message, in my opinion, and it's really kind of a silver bullet, because you see, of all the messages that I get from people, the most common thing that I get from folks is, how do I practice effectively? How do I actually become what I want to become? I feel overwhelmed. The information's there, I see that, but I don't know how to, I don't know how to take all that information in a way that's going to help me progress to the next level. And that's largely what I'm talking about in these blogs sometimes, is the things that you need to keep in mind to help you make your musical dreams come true. So I was imparting what I think is an extremely important concept on that subject in my last blog, but there are a few things that I want to clear up and address so that the message I'm really trying to communicate gets through solidly. Okay, first and foremost, thanks to all of you who had great concerns about my health. I was not that sick, but I appreciate your well wishes. Okay, I just had a painful foot and it was just hard to sit upright. I needed to have it up all the time. Not completely out of the woods with it yet, but it's allowing me to get back to my life to some extent. So I couldn't film anything very easily, because if I had my foot down and while I was playing or whatnot, it would kind of throb. So that's the only reason that I brought that up. I was letting you know why I was a little bit absent lately and blah, blah, blah. But it was not a big deal. It clears itself up in a few days, and so all is good. I am definitely on the mend and happy to be back. So thank you to all of you for your wonderful, wonderful, kind-hearted wishes of good health in my direction. Secondly, I mentioned the health challenge, this temporary thing I had going with the gout, basically because it helped me see a problem that a lot of us have, okay? Probably the worst thing that came out of this last video, or the misunderstandings that I think people had, was that some people actually thought that I was advocating pushing yourself farther than you can, to the point where you're exhausted or sick and gutting through. I don't believe in that, and I don't do that. It's actually, a lot of people are like, I had like 5 different people say, you're burning the candle at both ends, man, you gotta cool off. And I'm telling you, I don't. I do not do that. And I don't advocate that. In fact, the point of that video was to let you know that you don't have to burn the candle at both ends to make consistent progress. So I'm hoping that I can clear some of that up here in this one. I promise you, I took all the time that I needed to heal up, and I always do, and I always will. I take what I do here very seriously. I love what I do, and I take very seriously that people all over the world have sent in their money to have access to my catalog of lessons, and I take very, very seriously the promises and the commitments that I've made to you and the things that I say I'm going to do. So let's go by point some of the stuff I talked about. First of all, I walked you through how my business model used to work. And that was when I would make videos that were available for download, and they were overwhelming because they were long videos, so they really took a lot of thought and planning, and it was hard to come up with a good 2-hour video every whip stitch. As a result, what was happening was I was making them, and sometimes 5 or 6 of them in a shot and try and sell them as a pack, and then I just would sort of burn out and would do nothing for a while. Okay, now I was not beating myself up. I was doing the best that I knew how to do at the time. It was the best idea I had at the time. The problem was, it wasn't helping me with consistent output, which was good for my business and good for my students. The other problem was, it was creating products that while they had a lot of really great information, it was kind of overwhelming for people because they weren't sure how much of the video to watch and take in, blah, blah, blah. So once I started this new format, I simplified it for me and said, I'm just going to teach one concept at a time. So the videos are 10 to 30 minutes at the most. But mostly I just have to wrap my brain around one concept, one rhythm pattern, one lick or fill, one set of chords, just one concept, one theory. That's been good for me, but it's also good for people who are trying to learn, because no video is loaded with so much information that it completely overwhelms them. So it became a win for me and a win for you. So there was no self-mutilation going on here. It wasn't the point. What I was trying to tell you was that I used to burn the candle at both ends whenever I'd make a video or a set of videos, and then it would leave me with nothing in the tank. And as a result, it would be a very long time before I could actually do it again. And that would then, unfortunately, leave a lot of people feeling like I'd abandoned them. And the reason I know that is because I got a lot of emails from people. Where you been? What's going on? When's there going to be something new? And that was tough, because I wanted to do new things, but it just was very difficult the way I had it set up. So I'm telling you about this because it relates to the way you might be practicing the piano. So what I want to talk about here, maybe that'll help make an analogy out of this for you to understand, is the balance of yin and yang energy. Okay? Yin and yang are like the tortoise and the hare of the universe. Okay? There's yin, which is the tortoise, which is constant movement but sustainable pace. Not too fast, not too slow, not hard to keep up, but always moving forward. That's yin. Then there's the yang energy, which is the hare. Sprint! Take a break. Sprint! Take a break, because I'm exhausted. Okay? Does that make sense? They're both important. Yang is a more masculine energy, yin is a more feminine energy. And if you think about that, whether you're a man or a woman, you know people of the opposite sex. So think about yourself, think about someone of the opposite sex, and tell me if this isn't true. Men tend to be really good at working their asses off for a short time and then coming home and taking a dirt nap in front of the TV. I mean, is that about right? And then they get up and they do it again. We tend to do bursts of energy, and then gotta relax. Women tend to be extremely good at getting up in the morning and they start fluttering around, and then they gotta, here they clean up the kitchen, and then they make themselves some breakfast, and then they put some lunch together for the kids, and then they take their kids to school, and then they run 5 errands, and they go to work themselves, and they work all day, and then they get back home and they bake a banana bread out, and then they walk the banana bread next door to the neighbor whose parent just passed away, and they sit and they listen and they visit with them for a minute. Then they get back home and they vacuum the carpet, and then they sit down and they make dinner, and then they do this and they do that and they do this, and they read a bedtime story to their child, and then they go in and then finally they take a hot bath and they go to bed, and then the next morning they do it again. And men are always standing on the periphery of all this, going, I don't even know how she does that. Okay, that's yin energy. But women have sort of an innate wisdom in progress in that they know how to think small. They accomplish great amounts of things by doing small things. So it's like, yeah, they wipe the countertop down, but that takes just a little bit of effort in just a few minutes. And then they move on and they make some lunch for their kids. And then da-da-da-da-da, and then da-da-da-da. And each little task is a small task. So nothing they're doing is unsustainable, so they're not running at a sprint. They're just taking a nice, easy pace, okay? We need both because sometimes something comes in and you need a big burst of energy to gut through it. And then other times, you're not going to be able to get it done in one sitting, okay? So what I would tell you about what I was saying in the last video about your piano practicing is this. If you are like me, and most of you are, you're artists in one fashion or another, you are artists and you're very passionate people. So you get really excited about something. You're like, I am going to learn how to play this stuff. Okay, that's great. That's going to lead to a lot of yang energy in your practicing, and that's fine. I'm not telling you not to do that. But what I am telling you is to be mindful of the fact that what you're going to end up doing is playing for a few hours a day for a short time because you're going to be really, really excited. And then suddenly you're going to burn out, most likely. Because other stuff in your life, the incoming fire I was talking about in that last video, are going to show up and interrupt you. And they can't be ignored. Bills have to be paid. Jobs have to be gone to. The issue, the crisis your family's going through or whatever, some health challenge, they're here and you have to deal with them, okay? So what I was trying to talk to you about when I was mentioning minimum, target, outrageous, is to recognize that outrageous is yang energy. Minimum is yin energy. And if you can learn how to have a balance of those two things in your life, particularly as it pertains to your practice, then what's going to happen is you're going to get farther faster. Okay? I had someone say, are you of the ilk that you need to play the piano every day? I'm not telling anyone they should or shouldn't do that. Personally, I like to play the piano every day, but this is my job. This is my career, my profession. So, yeah, I pretty much do. It drives me crazy when I can't. But that's not a hardship for me to play it every day, okay? But not everybody who's going to be a member of this site is going to be quite as off the deep end with it as I am. I understand that. I'm not advocating that you be. I like to set my minimums up on a weekly basis, not a daily basis, because on any particular day, things can get out of control and it's hard to match them. But if I can say in the course of a week, and that's what I was talking about for my business, the way I deal with the incoming fire is that I give myself some minimum objectives to do each week that I know I can do even in the worst case scenario. Even when all hell breaks loose and nothing makes any sense and I'm not feeling that good, I still know I can find a half an hour or 45 minutes worth of time to film 2 lesson clips for you because it is important to me. I want to grow this business. You see, you have to decide what is it you're trying to accomplish. If all you want to do is have sort of a passing relationship with the piano and come and go with it as you please, be my guest. When you're on, play a lot. When you're off, don't. But the person who does that and then is frustrated by the fact that they've lost so much of what they used to know how to do, and when they come back to it, they have to relearn things that they know they already know, but they've lost their, and it doesn't come back very quickly, and they can't just pick up where they left and start learning new things. They need to recognize that their practicing style is causing that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay? But a lot of people get really frustrated by this. They're like, I learned it once, I should be able to do it. But you haven't done anything to maintain it. You see? So don't be frustrated by that. Just recognize that's how this process works. If it's really important to you to maintain everything that you've learned over a period of time, then you need some kind of a yin practice as well as your occasional yang practice. Meaning when you're really excited, go with it. Play as much as you want. But when you start to burn out, have some minimum standards you keep. It could be, can you find 15 or 20 minutes 3 times in a week to just sit down and go over some of the stuff that you've already learned? To just play them. Just to keep that electro kind of, nervous energy that goes from your brain down to your muscles intact, to keep that highway built. So, if you've really worked hard to learn how to do this, if you sit down and do it, even if you only do it for 2 minutes, cut like 2-3 times a week, you'll never lose it. Your brain will maintain what you've already learned. But if you quit using it, then your brain and your nervous system are extremely, extremely efficient. And they're going to say, oh, we're not using that. Let's not devote any energy to keep that in the data bank, because that's not important now. We're not going to use that. He's not using it. So we want that energy available for something else. But if you just play it a little bit, it'll keep saying, must be important enough to keep on hand. Okay? So what I'm saying is, you need to decide what your minimum standards are, and they need to be realistic. And you should set them up based on the worst case scenario of your life, not the best case scenario. And that does 2 things for you. One, every week, if you do your minimums, whatever they are, there's some level of what you've learned that you'll maintain no matter what. You may not learn anything new, but the next time that you hit your stride and feel a lot of that yang energy where you want to really go for it, and you play 3 hours a day for a couple of weeks, you will start learning new stuff. You won't have to relearn that stuff. You'll hit the ground running, so to speak, because you had these minimum standards. It could be 2 days a week that you do just 15 or 20 minutes. It could be 3. It could be 5. Whatever is important to you. I'm not going to tell you that, because everybody's value and priority level with this is different, okay? And you don't have to do it at all. But like I say, a lot of you do this yang thing, and then you burn out, and then you don't touch the piano for couple months, and then you come back to play, and then you send me a message saying, Steve, I can't remember anything. What should I do? Well, I'm telling you right now, what you need to do is you need to have some simple and easy minimum standard that you keep of practice, where you just run over what you already know so you don't lose it. Okay? So that is one thing. It'll help you maintain it so that in between your yang bursts, you just at least maintain and maybe continue to progress. And then when you hit your stride, when the current of the river comes back behind you, or you get the wind at your back again, boom, you start learning new stuff, and you don't waste time relearning old stuff. The other thing that happens is that when you are unavoidably detained, as sometimes we are, you can have these minimum standards, and then the example I use, if you had a heart attack, you had bypass surgery, please don't assign that to me. I'm not in that kind of shape, okay? That's not what's going on with me. But I'm just saying, if you had something really major like that happen, you're in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and then you come home and it's hard to sit up. You're not going to be playing the piano. It's a fact, okay? You probably lose some of what you learned. But if you have a minimum standard, when you do feel ready to come back and it's exhausting and you haven't done it for a while, you have something really not overwhelming to start with. You have something very approachable. It's like, well, I haven't been able to play for a month because of X, Y, or Z. And it hurts to sit up, or I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm not even sure how to get back to it. Guess what? You sit down a couple of times a week for 15 or 20 minutes and run some of the stuff that you remember. And you try some of the stuff, and you might have lost a little bit of it, but you just work on that. And you just work on it a couple times a week for 10 or 15 minutes. That will allow you to build momentum. And the momentum will get you back to a point where you feel good about it again. And when you feel good about it again, you'll be able to hit it with your full stride. But if you just, if the only thing you have in your mind about practicing is that you either practice 3 hours a day or you're a failure, guess what? You're going to do a lot of this. Practice really hard for a while, drop off the face of the earth. Practice really hard for a while, drop off the face of the earth. if that's what you want out of the experience, that's fine too. I'm not judging it, but I'm telling you, you're not going to accomplish the things that you're wanting to accomplish as a player if you have specific achievements in mind by doing that, because you're not maintaining your craft. That's the main thing. So this is not to tell you how much you should practice or how little you should practice. It's just to make a point that so many of us erroneously believe, especially when you're a big passionate artist like I am, we erroneously believe that if it's not perfect, then it's not worth it, you know? And that's not true. So we have a great experience for a while where we're really, really feeling connected to what we're doing. And we practice and practice and practice like crazy for, you know, in the scheme of things, a short time, but it feels like a long time while we're doing it. It could be 2-3 weeks, and we're just really, really dedicated. Then we burn out, and then we can't figure out why we burned out, which I'm not even going to tell you why you burned out. Who knows? It's different for every person, but it's like, then you feel like kind of a failure. You're like, oh man, I just can't find the steam to do this. Why can't I get it together? I guess I'll never be a good player. No, you were just asking more of yourself than you probably could realistically expect on a consistent basis. In the short term, you could expect that of yourself because you felt that connected to it. When you feel connected to something, you just find the resources and the energy and the time to do it. Have you noticed that? When you're really connected to something, you find what you have to find to be able to do it. But then your connection starts to wane a little bit. The honeymoon is a little bit over. And now you just, you know, because you can't make yourself practice at that level, you just give up, even though it's still important to you. Well, the way that you fix that is that from the get-go, you create a practice habit and you say, here's what I want to do on a very minimal level. At the very least, and it needs to be very realistic. I'm going to, 2 days a week for 20 minutes. That's all that's important, is twice a week for 20 minutes. I'm just going to run the things that I know, or at least some of the things that I know. If I can't do anything else, that's all I'm going to do. When you're feeling really good and you want to give it more, give it more. But when you start to feel your burn and your connection fade, that's fine, go with it, but keep your minimum. That minimum will help you stay a little bit more connected. You'll probably come back into feeling connected to it more, faster, and then you'll have your periods where you practice more and get more out of it. But practicing for 3 hours on Monday doesn't do the same thing for muscle memory that practicing 20 minutes 6 days in a row does. And that's what's happened with my business too. My students are happier and I'm happier, and we're all getting a better experience than we used to get, not because the information was bad before, but because putting 2 new lesson clips and 1 new tutorial clip out every week without fail is 1, not overwhelming for me to do, and 2, it means more. That yin energy means more. It gets me farther faster. I think smaller, I do less, but I do it consistently. And it's easier for me to schedule my life, because here's the thing. It's hilarious to me when people think that I'm working too hard at this. I'm like, are you kidding me? I probably only put like 15 to 20 hours a week into this, because I am very, very dedicated to spending time with my wife and my pets. We like to go hiking and walking, and we like to watch movies, and we love to watch a good television series from beginning to end on Netflix. Not in one sitting, but we have that kind of thing going for us. And we love to take trips and go to conferences. That's my number 1 priority. I want to make sure I've got plenty of time to do that. And I love to play live. So I've got to make sure I've got time to do that too. So I don't overtax myself because I use this system. I consistently do a little, so that I don't have to do a lot sporadically. But guess what? I have ebbs and flows. Sometimes I feel incredibly connected to what I'm doing. And so I'll do a video blog every single day. And I might do more than 2 lesson clips, and I might do more than 2 tutorial clips in a week. But I never expect that of myself. Because if I expect that of myself every week, I'm going to burn out. And then, because I set outrageous as my minimum, I'm going to fail to meet it. And sometimes when you're an artist and you have a lot of passion for life, if you feel like you can't meet what your minimum standard was, you just don't even try. I know, that's what I've done most of my life, but it has changed my life to recognize that I'm not faulty. There's nothing wrong with me. I just was having minimum expectations that were outrageous expectations. And when I changed that, it changed everything. Now I squeeze 48 hours of work into a day and I do it in 2 hours, you know, because I think small. And I try to make sure that I do something for this business at least 2 or 3 days a week. That's all I ask of myself, and only for a couple hours at a time. The rest of the time I can spend learning things and watching. I mean, I'm the biggest junkie for like watching concert clips, and I'm constantly learning new things because it's fun, and putting new tracks in for my live performance and all of that. But every one of those things I do as much as I feel like in any given moment. But this is a priority in my life, so I make sure that I have a minimum standard that gets kept, and it's always something that's 100% sustainable for me, even in the worst of circumstances. And if for some terrible reason something came up that really did completely detain me from doing this for a period of time, let's say that something happened and I absolutely couldn't film a single thing for you for a month. Well, I would email you all and let you know what was going on, and I'd take my month. And I wouldn't think another thing of it. I would just say, you know what? I've done my best. This can't be helped. And I'd take that month and just do what I had to do. But guess what? Guess what I'd do immediately after that month? I'd start doing my minimums again. And you know why? Because it wouldn't be hard, because they're sustainable, they're approachable, they're not overwhelming. And that is when you start getting magical results in anything you try, especially playing the piano. Because if you never lose what you've already learned, then every time you get more connected, you're going to learn something new. And if you've got that little bitty sustainable minimum going on, you're not going to lose anything that you've learned. So I hope that that clears up what we were talking about. Again, I appreciate your concerns that I'm working too hard and that I'm not taking care of my health. Nothing could be further from the truth. I took all the time I needed. I laid around for about 4 days, watching movies, drinking water, eating fruit and vegetables, and propping my foot up above my heart and putting ice on it, and we got through it. And I took as much time as it needed. I didn't try to force myself through it at all. So for those of you who were concerned, I apologize for any lack of clarity in what I was talking about before, but that blog was absolutely not about working really hard. It was about working smart. It was about finding a sustainable way to continue to grow as a piano player. A sustainable, easy way to grow that's not overwhelming and that doesn't place unrealistic expectations on you. So I'm sure that we'll talk more about this concept in the future, but for now I think that probably says as much as I need to say about it. So thanks for tuning in. It's always a pleasure for me to visit with you guys. I will be back with new goodies very, very soon. And thank you for being a part of the community. You guys are, other than my, extended family and my beautiful wife, you guys are a very, very important and special part of my life. So thank you for being there and for communicating back and forth with me. This is a very rewarding thing for me to be able to do. So, remember, you're not having fun when you're making music. You're doing it wrong. I'll talk to you later, guys. Thanks for tuning in.